Russell, and I would like to welcome you to my very first video cast. I've been doing audio podcasts off and on for some time, and last Christmas I got a DSLR for Christmas, of course, and I thought I would like to get into some video and be able to do a few things with that. And I thought that the first thing I would do is to give a tour of my podcast studio just for fun. Now, I've learned some things over the years, and I have changed some things, so I'm mainly going to talk about what I've been using most recently. Now, the audio you are hearing right now is the audio that I am speaking into this microphone right here, being synced with the video, and this microphone is a Heil PR40. It is a radio quality microphone. However, honestly, I'm not really sure if there are radio stations that use this, but it is used by a whole lot of very serious podcasters, and it is very popular among them. Now, I like it because it is a microphone with a lot of bass pickup, and with me having a bass voice, I tend to think it sounds a lot more like my voice than regularly. But then again, I only hear my voice through hearing me talk, and so I don't really know what I sound like to other people, but I would imagine this would be what was more natural. You will see that I've got this little blue thing on it, and this is a pop filter because I'm really bad at popping my P's, and hopefully this helps save your hearing. I've got it hanging on a boom stand right here that's basically just keeping it where I can keep it right up near my mouth, and it hangs down on this shock mount that surrounds it. And this shock mount is basically just to try to keep it from picking up nearby vibrations or other things that could really make some noise into the recording. Now, I will show you that before the 2014 studio recordings, at least from about 2011 until that time, I was actually using this Electro Voice RE20 microphone. That's also a radio quality microphone, and it is a widely used radio microphone. In fact, it's probably the most commonly used microphone at radio stations. But I decided to give this Heil that I've had a while another try for last year, and so far I've liked the results. Now, you will see that I do have on some headphones, and these are Beyerdynamic DT770 headphones. And yes, believe it or not, I am listening to myself talk. And of course, it's not really because I'm in love with my own voice. It's basically because I want to know what's going on in this podcast as I'm talking and hear how it's sounding. These are good. They're very insulated or kind of isolated headphones in the fact that they cancel the outside noise. So really, I just hear what's going on the podcast. And also, they don't leak out noise that goes back into the microphone and back into the podcast, because that wouldn't be a good thing either. But this does allow me to monitor, and they work really well, and they sound really good, and I've had them for years and really like using them. So now, let me show you the rest of my setup once I'm recording into this microphone where the sound goes. Now, usually when I'm recording in my studio, I'm going to record the audio directly to my computer, but there's actually a couple of stops here along the way that the signal from the microphone has to go through before it can get into the computer. And those are those two boxes that you see on the screen right now. It actually goes through that bottom one first, and that bottom one is a Focusrite Platinum Trackmaster Pro, and it's something you might call a signal processor or a vocal strip that's designed to enhance my sound. There are actually two things that I use this for, and they're called a preamp and a compressor, which I'll explain in just a moment. The preamp is what it goes through first. And you saw the big microphone that I'm talking into, and you might think that this really big microphone is really powerful, and it produces a really big, powerful audio signal that's really loud, but in actuality, it doesn't. Radio mics usually are pretty wimpy. In fact, most microphones actually produce pretty wimpy signals, and they require a preamp to boost that signal to a level that's really usable and make it into audio that you can actually hear. Now, once the audio goes through the preamp, it also is processed by a compressor. And what the compressor does is it decreases the difference between the softest parts of the talk and the loudest parts. And it does that by squeezing down the loud part and then amplifying the whole thing. And this serves three important purposes. One of them is it gives my voice a presence, like I'm nearby, at least as much of that radio sound as I've been able to get. Secondly, by reducing the loudest parts of the audio, it can help keep me from being so loud that I blow out the equipment. Well, I wouldn't really blow out the equipment, but what would happen is it would really give me really nasty, distorted audio that nobody would want to listen to. But finally, and most importantly, is it means that you can listen to me talk without having to have your hand on the volume knob the whole time, turning it up whenever I talk too softly and down whenever I talk too loudly. This keeps the audio relatively even, so that you can just relax, listen, and enjoy. So now all this is done is basically process the audio signal. Nothing really computerized has happened yet. But from the Focusrite, it goes into that top box that you see, that blue thing there, which is an Inbox 2 Pro. It's actually kind of an older device. There's actually an Inbox 3 out now. And this is really the interface. And what it does is it takes the sound and it puts it into the computer for the computer then just to be able to save it to disk. And I will tell you that the Inbox 2 Pro has served me very well for a number of years. It's really nice. This is actually an interface that connects by FireWire, which was really great at the time I bought it, and it's still working well with my existing computer today. But I would suggest to anybody who is buying one of these today to get something that connects by USB, because if you look even at, say, Apple's website at the computers they offer now, they don't even offer FireWire. It's a dying technology, whereas I doubt I'll live to see the demise of USB. So if you really want to future-proof your stuff, the USB really is the way to go these days, and I'm going to have to use something USB when the time comes to upgrade the computer. But the Inbox series actually, it's a rather expensive series. It's actually a very nice one, though. It's something that's given me really good quality audio, and I would recommend it, but there are a lot of what I'm trying to say is there's a number of others that are also out there that would also be worth a try. So like I said, from this box, the audio goes into my computer and into my recording software. There are a couple of different programs that I might choose to record into. One of them is Apple Logic Pro, and this is what they call a digital audio workstation software. There are some others out there like Pro Tools or Digital Performer or Cubase. And to be honest, it's pretty extreme overkill for podcasting, but it does let me mix some things together if I'd like. And what I find really helpful is that it records directly to disk as I talk. And that way, if the program crashes, I don't lose what I've done. However, a lot of times my recordings are pretty short, and that's not that big of a deal. So very often I'll record into my editing program, which is Adobe Audition, and this is version CS6. There are actually newer versions out there, but unfortunately Adobe made the decision to make a lot of their software available via something called Creative Cloud, where you have to pay a subscription fee every month, and this is the last version that wasn't like that, so I'll probably end up having to replace this program once it no longer runs on the computer that I have, and may go with something like Sony SoundForge or maybe use a less expensive program, just depending on what I can do at the time. But this program really is excellent, and I would highly recommend it if you can afford to pay the subscription fee. Last year, I wanted to try to produce as many podcasts as I could, and so I knew I needed to get creative in order to be able to spend more time producing content and find the time to do so. So I have this mobile rig that I'm using, and you're actually listening to that right now. That's where the audio for this segment of the video is coming from. And this started off where I would literally go to my car And don't worry, I didn't podcast and drive, but I would sit in my car during my lunch break, and so I called them lunch break editions because of that. I'll tell you, it was a pretty hot, sweaty way to record sometimes, especially as it got warmer. And basically, what I would do is I have my standard vocal mic, which I have in my hand, and this is the microphone that I used last year. Probably going to change it out if I do this anymore this year. It's running through the regular cable into this device. It's called the iRig Pro. And this device is then running into the lightning port of my iPhone. And it actually has adapters. You could actually use it as a USB interface into your computer, or it also has the 30 pin in case you have an older iPhone, so it can be used that way. It is powered from the iPhone, so I don't need any kind of battery or anything. The only exception is if you wanted to use a condenser mic with phantom power, you need to put in a 9 volt, but I haven't done that. And this really does get good sound, and I really do like it, but it does have one drawback, and that is because it does occupy the lightning port in my iPhone. It does mean that I can't charge the phone while I'm doing a podcast. So I need to make sure that I had enough battery power left in my phone, both to be able to record the podcast and really to be able to use the phone for the rest of the day after I'd done it, so that I didn't end up with a dead phone in the middle of my workday and my wife couldn't call me. Now, realistically, this, especially for the length of time I recorded on it, really wasn't bad. But if you needed something that you needed to be able to record longer into, they do make one that plugs into the headphone and microphone jack, and that's also good if you have an Android phone. From what I understand, the sound quality might not be quite as good, but it's probably good enough for most people's needs. However, like I said, it did get pretty hot later, and this was not particularly comfortable to record in later on, and also to make even more time to do some more episodes and try some outdoor recording. I would also record after a jog, or maybe just when I was at a park somewhere. And honestly, carrying a microphone cable and my phone hooked up like this around with me was a little cumbersome. So, when I'm out on a jog, or when I'm going to a park and going for a walk or something and need something nice and portable to carry, I carry this portable recorder that I have in my hand. It's called the Zoom H2N, and right now you are listening to the audio from my recording into this Zoom H2N, so I am really using it live here. There's also a Zoom H1 if you wanted a less expensive recorder. It has fewer features, but it actually might make a good starter as well. This one has more features. As I mentioned, it has even like 2 different kind of microphones. I'm using a stereo microphone on this side. There's also what they call a mid-side on the other side that I can switch to and use, but I like to use the side where I can use the level meters, and they're only on the front here. Now, this recorder records in stereo, and normally when I'm podcasting, I like to record in mono, or at least mix it down to mono afterward, because spoken word just really doesn't sound good in stereo. I've tried it before, didn't like the results, but when I'm recording outside, sometimes I want the ambience and to make a more, realistic kind of recording where I can hear the birds in the background and their position, which in stereo it's a lot easier to do, or even a car going by, or even the ice cream truck when those come by, just to give some ambience. Now, there is an accessory kit you can buy for this, and that's where I got this pop filter and this case. And I would say, in fact, I would actually strongly recommend that you get the accessory pack if you were to get this recorder. It also contains like a tripod stand, a remote, and even an AC adapter. And one thing I can say about this too is that the battery life has been really good. In fact, I've had this recorder for a bit over a year, and I'm still using the batteries that came with it. And speaking of ambience there, so now you can hear a car coming by, and there it is. Maybe you can start to see it in the video a little bit. And when I'm recording outside, I like those effects. But anyway, one thing that I will tell you about this recorder that you need to know if you're going to use it is that when I'm using this, I need to be very careful holding it and try to hold it as still as possible. If I move my hand around it or anything, more than likely these sensitive microphones are going to pick it up. Now, this recorder does record onto an SD card. It actually comes with a micro SD card with an adapter to put in it, so you get a 2 gigabyte recorder to begin with, or 2 gigabyte card, that is. And then when I'm done recording, I can just take it, I can put it into my computer, and I can edit away. And once I'm finished recording, no matter how I might have recorded, I then put it onto my computer and put it into my editing software. And the main program I've been using lately is Adobe Audition CS6, like I was talking about earlier. There's a number of things I can do in here. I can apply some compression or some equalization, which kind of makes certain audio frequencies louder and certain softer to make it sound better. Has a noise gate, so hopefully decrease breath sounds and other unwanted sounds in the audio. And actually, to accomplish that, I use a plugin that's called Ozone 5. There's actually a newer version out now, and I'm looking into getting it at some time. Sometimes I use a program called Amadeus Pro, and this is a really great program for the price. It's a lot less expensive than Adobe Audition, and if you're looking for something starting out, I would highly recommend it. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed listening to this. I hope this has been helpful, or at least interesting to you in some way. If you want to get a hold of some more of my content, you can go to my webpage at www.davidansel.com. And you've got my blog, my podcast, even some other talks that I've given. Thank you for listening, and may God bless you.